Hi there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Talking Faith, where Johnny and I just take a little bit of time to chat and reflect on different parts of Scripture, different ideas of faith, things that are kind of coming to our mind. Obviously, at the minute, we're particularly kind of working our way through some Beatitudes, so welcome. It's good to be able to join with you and to chat and to reflect. And as ever, make sure to grab yourself that tea, that coffee, a nice warm drink to sit down and enjoy this time with us. Now, we're in the Beatitudes. We've gone through a couple already, Johnny. What Beatitude are we up to at this point?
So the Beatitude we're on this week is, blessed are those who are meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Kind of an interesting statement, to be honest. When I was growing up and when I was looking at this passage, it seems to be time and time again I misunderstood this as I was growing up, as we all potentially do in the early stages of our faith. But I looked at the word meek, and from what I could kind of see in society around me and from what people kind of said, it just linked to the concept of being weak. That's what I thought it was. So quite honestly, I was kind of like, why is Jesus trying to tell us to be weak? That was the thing that came into my head. Why is he telling us to be weak? And the sort of notion that I get when I think of weakness is just letting people push you over, not really ever standing up for what you believe in. But then when I looked at the story of Jesus, I didn't see that. There may be some situations where he accepted what came to him, like for example when the Romans put him on the cross, but for the most part in life he stood up for what he believed in. He showed this strength which didn't correspond with weakness, so clearly meekness must be something else. And as I've been exploring through faith in my life, I sort of realised between maybe 16, 17 years old, this meekness isn't talking about weakness, it's describing more a level of humility. So that's what I want to think of the sort of first section of this is our relationship with other people, how we show meekness to them is through being humble. And the main thing that sort of put me thinking on this subject was our old minister in Troon, a guy called Brian Gooding. He used to be part of our men's group on a weekly basis, and he didn't run it, but whenever there was a tough situation that came up, whenever there was maybe a difficult subject we were discussing, all the eyes kind of looked over towards Brian. Like, whenever, we're discussing these tough subjects, we'd kind of look over to him and kind of be like, can you answer this for us? That was kind of our thought. But Brian never did that. He never just went, okay, here's what Scripture says, boom, done. Move on. There was a humbleness about the way he approached the subject. He got us to look at it in a different light through maybe asking a key question or through just reflecting it with us. And it was just really interesting to see that he was shaping us to embrace the concept of what the passage was saying through humility. He wasn't just telling us, he was helping us understand. And I think that's the key notion of what meekness is when it comes to our relationship with other people. It's being humble. It's acknowledging that, well, we're all made mistakes, we're all sinners saved by grace. And the way we respond to other people is, even when they make mistakes, we're humble towards them and we help them see the true light of what Jesus would want us to be in a situation. And that's the thing that came to mind, is this notion of humbleness.
That's fair. Yeah, meekness is not weakness, as they say, but valuable for us to reflect on, I guess, what it means for us to be meek in our relationship with others. And I guess that leads to the obvious next question of God. What does it mean to be meek before God or in our relationship with God?
Yeah. And I think that's where maybe when I was sort of Googling the concept of meek, the understanding of submitting to other people's will, that's what stood out to me the most when I thought of a relationship with God. Actually, the point of being meek with God is we submit to his will. A good analogy, something that helped me kind of understand that a little bit better, was in the Bible quite often we're talked about being in a race and we're running this great race. And the analogy that I found a while ago was suggesting actually it's quite useful to think of ourselves as a horse. A wild horse in a race might be really fast and really quick, but it's not going to go in the right direction. It's maybe not going to take the correct path. It's never going to win that race. However, once it accepts the bridle, once it accepts the rider on the back who guides and who focuses them, they're able to get to that level of success where they win the race. And that's what's been on my mind when it comes to meekness, is this understanding that we accept the hand of God as he guides us through life, and then we're able to focus in on the things he guides us to, and in turn that helps us to build up his kingdom. And that's what makes me kind of think of that notion of inheriting the earth. For people of the day who were listening, they weren't going to inherit much. They were going to get maybe their little piece of land. The people in power were people like Caesar or people like Herod, who took and took and took. Whereas what God's kind of saying is the leaders of his church, the people who inherit, are those who don't take, but those who meekly follow God and humbly show who he is to other people. And we see that in the New Testament as we see the leaders of the church be persecuted and accept that persecution and still moving forward with the hand of God. And that really encouraged me, this notion that we are meek by just obeying God, and then showing that humbleness to other people. And that will build up the inheritance of the church, where we will grow, maybe not necessarily in numbers, but in our depth of understanding Scripture, or maybe even just our ability to handle hard times. And that's what's really been on my mind recently.
Okay, that's more than fair. Valuable reflections on what meekness looks like. It reminds me almost a little bit of in Micah, where it talks of walking humbly with God, that picture of life, of humility, of trust, and I guess of obedience in there too, of letting God kind of guide the way. So I hope you found that valuable to for your own reflections, take those thoughts on and weigh them over and speak with God, pray these things out to wrestle them out for what they look like in your life. But thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you again next week.